Hello everyone, Nisarg here from DataMites. So today's question is that what exactly is polymorphism in object-oriented programming? So this is a concept, basically, polymorphism, which literally means that taking more than one forms means one same object, and it's taking more than one forms. So how it is useful in object-oriented programming, and how we can relate this concept polymorphism with OOPS. Let's take an example and see things. Okay. So let's say I just create a class called as A. Okay. And inside this class A, before I'm going to initialize the constructor, I'm just going to take a variable, and this is a variable. I'll just write, one of the string inside this variable, called this to be. This is a variable inside, or I can say that this is a class variable of class A, okay, because this one is the class variable itself. Now, below to it, simply I'm going to initialize my constructor, and inside this constructor, I'm going to create the same variable that's called to be var. But inside of this, the information is changed. So I'll call this to be, this is an instance variable inside class A. So this is basically an instance variable, because whatever that you are making inside the constructor, that's basically giving the attribute to one of the object. So this one is the instance variable inside the class A. Okay. So now let's see. If I am going to create an object of class A like this, and then if I call this variable called as var, which is going to come, this one or this one? Let's execute it. The moment we execute, we got to see that the instance variable which is associated to that particular object which has been made by class A, the instance variable is going to come first. This is an instance variable inside class A, means this has been called. Now, if I simply make it commented out, and if I simply use this pass because I don't want any kind of error to it, and now if I run this, now what do you think? If I just create the object of class A, and if I say a.var, now I have just commented out the instance, only the class variable is left. The moment I execute, I can see this is a class variable of class A. So you see, now it's giving this particular result. I mean, this particular class variable has been called by the object A. This is what the basic polymorphism means same thing, but it's taking different values when the things has been changed. It's the same variable name var, but because it has been placed in different places, and according to a certain situation, its value is getting changed. Now let's see. Let me just make it. Okay. Now what I am going to do now, I'm going to create one more class, call it to be class B. Okay. And inside the class B, I'm going to create the same variable called as var, and I'm going to write it. This is a class variable of class B. And down to it, I'm going to create the constructor of my B class. I'm going to say def init underscore self. Then I'm going to say self.var, where the same thing that we have constructed for class A, for the instance variable of class A, same thing, same name, same self.var. But inside of it, the information is changed, the data is changed. I'm going to say that this is an instance variable of class B. Simple. Okay. Now, if I create the object of class B, let's say B, small b is the object of class B. And if I say b.var, which var it's going to call? Oh, let me do one more thing. Let me just make this class B as the child class of your class A. So class A has become the parent and class B has become the child. Now, if I say, let me run this. if I say b dot var, which a particular variable it's going to call, this one, this one, this one, or this one. Let's see. If I simply execute this, it says this is an instance variable of class B. So the moment it finds the name inside the instance variable, simply it calls that particular variable. That's why this is an instance variable of class B has been called. Now, simply if I comment it out and use this pass so that I don't get any error. Now, again, if I run the same command saying that call b dot var, now we have this var and we have this var and we have this var. Which var it's going to call? Let me run. This is a class variable of class B, basically. This is a class variable of class B. Means the moment I just commented this instance variable out, its class variable, which is having the same name, has been called out. Now, if I simply comment this out as well, okay, now if I run this, let me run this first. Now, if I run this, it says that this is a class variable of class A, means its parent's class variable has been called. Now, what I wanted to call the instanced variable of its parent class, means this particular one. For doing this, we require to use super function. We require to use super function. So let me just uncomment everything and let me just put back everything in a proper place. So for that, there's a command called super. So inside the constructor of the child, simply you use this super dot underscore underscore init underscore underscore, and this is like this. So what does it mean? That means inside the constructor of your child class, I am calling the constructor of my parent class. So what's going to happen? That when I am going to run this command right now, first it will call the constructor of its parent class, and inside the constructor, this variable is going to get initialized. This variable, its parent's variable. Now, immediately after, you can see we have again this var is getting initialized, this dot var with the same name, but this is inside the child class. So if I run this, let me just run this and show you what exactly I'm saying. Now I am going to create the object of my B class. Now if I say b dot var, first what it's gonna do, because we have the constructor built, and you know that inside the constructor we have your instance variable. First, it's going to call the constructor of its parent class, but immediately after, it's going to get overridden because the next line of code says self.var, means whatever the var previously it has used or called, now that thing has again been overridden by the instance variable of this particular class only. And again, if I run this simply, you'll see, you'll get this is an instance variable of class B. But if I simply put this thing down, means first I am initializing my instance variable, but in the next line, I am calling up my constructor of my parent class. The moment I'm calling the constructor of the parent class, whatever the instance that has been written inside the constructor of the parent class, like this self.var, this is going to override this var, means this var is going to override this particular var. Means if I simply run now, you'll see, let me just run this. This is an instance variable inside a class A. Why? Because first it went inside its own constructor. Inside of it, there was a variable called var. That's well and good. But in the next line, the super function is being called. The moment super function is being called, it's initializing the constructor of its parent class. And in the parent class, the var variable is defined and it is having a value. This is an instance variable inside a class A. That's the reason you are getting this is an instance variable inside a class A. So you see, same variable, but its form is getting changed just by changing, a certain structure of my class itself, right? This is what called polymorphism in object-oriented programming. Okay, thank you.